Hello everyone and welcome to Project Insights Agile Practice webinar. Our topic for today is Agile Portfolio. Just a few things to note before we get started. All participants will be put on mute. However, any questions you have are more than welcome. Please go ahead and type those into your question box, which you can find on your GoToWebinar dashboard. And we will try to answer all of your questions during the session, but if we can't, we'll make sure to get back to you through email before the end of the day. Also, please note this webinar recording and slides will be available within our Project Insight community. All of our PM and Agile training sessions are valid for 1 PDU free of charge. However, you must be in attendance for the full session. I will email you your PDU certificate by the end of today, so please hold off on emailing me about your certificate until then. And for all other PDU information, please visit our PI community, type in PDU in the search, and you will find the PMI rules in an article called Webinars and PDUs. Also, for those of you wondering about the recording and slides, those will also be sent to you via email by tomorrow. My name is Denise, and I will be your moderator for today. I'm on the marketing team here at Project Insight. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to reach me at denise.rodriguez@projectinsight.com. If you're not already familiar with Project Insight, we're a cloud-based project management solution. We work with two kinds of companies, those that are rapidly growing and need to scale the way they're managing their projects, and those who want greater visibility across their project portfolio, want more insight into the workloads of the resources, and want a better way to collaborate on projects among team members. If any of these sound familiar to you and you would like to learn more, please feel free to contact us via phone, email, or you can request your demo at projectinsight.net. We'd like to give a warm welcome to our presenter today, Dr. Dave Cornelius. Dr. Dave is an experienced IT and business professional and a globally recognized lean and agile catalyst who empowers others to achieve their very best. He specializes in coaching, training, and leading co-located and distributed teams to deliver quality innovations from concept to cash. Dave has also held several leadership roles where he helped transform IT into a partner within other groups within organizations. And he is also the founder of the 5 Saturday program and leads the group's leadership council. Good morning, Dave. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I am fabulous, Denise. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm doing
That's
wonderful.
So great. Yeah, it is. So good morning and welcome to the Now Share with Dr. Dave presentation. It's a little forecast here today in Southern California, but I hope you're well wherever you are. Usually we respond to questions from a previous webinar. However, today we will jump right in. Our presentation is Agile Portfolio.
Can you share your screen, please?
I keep forgetting about that. Agile Portfolio. Yeah.
We love your voice, but we do want to see some slides with it.
Isn't that great? So I would like to tell you that Agile Portfolio has similar desired outcomes as traditional portfolio techniques. The Agile Portfolio goals are: 1, select the right opportunity to maximize a sustainable profit. 2, remove non-value outcome activities. And 3, build alignment through the organization. The Agile practice is iterative, and the focus will be to authorize work on a quarterly basis. This provides flexibility to inspect and adapt according to customer demands and market conditions. Our discussion will explore the weighted shortest job first, WSJF, which we call WIIFM, as a technique to select the right opportunity with the highest priority. So we're going to have a lot of wonderful topics today, and those topics will include things like iterative strategy, lean thinking and agility, strategic discovery, prioritizing strategic value. We'll talk about WIIFM, look at Agile Portfolio to see that we're doing the right value done right, measuring the promise, and understand that culture does matter. So at the conclusion of this presentation, we want you to be able to apply lean thinking and agility tenets, prioritize strategic and agile portfolio backlogs, use the weighted shortest job first as an economic indicator, and make strategic decisions. And then also just to pursue a collaborative culture. So I always want to jump right in and ask, what business leaders really want? And I could think of 5 things that they look for. Number 1, they want to retain and increase margins. And 2, they want to protect and expand brand loyalty. They want to attract and retain resilient leaders. 4, they want to practice agility. And 5, they want to manage risks. But in agile organization, they also want to build a collaborative culture and a space for innovation. So one of the key things that we'll look at is that we have to align the organization to begin this. So I look at some research from Forbes, and they said that less than 10% successfully deliver on strategic goals. So I'd say alignment is the first way to achieve our strategic goals. And we do that by sharing the strategy intent and the benefit so that goes a long way. And especially when we start talking about WIIFM, what's in it for me, to make sure that the people that we're working with has a great insight. Also, in terms of our strategy, it should be in response to the current and future market needs. And so I was looking at additional researchers, and what we found is that from McKinsey & Company, one of the measures of an organization's success is its agility, whether it manages to stay at least one step ahead of its market. So when we think of strategy and we're building portfolios, our key goal is to make sure that agile practices is essential to what we're doing, and we're building that culture of collaboration and innovation. I want to set the stage to make sure that we're on target for what we're doing.
Dave?
Yeah?
Can we pause for a second? There's a question here for you, and I think it's in regards to the last slide. How do we measure alignment so we know where we are?
Can I get back to that a little later on in the presentation?
Yeah, of course.
And could you hold, if you could just hold that question. And as we go through different metrics, we could have that discussion at that time. So someone wants to know, how do we measure alignment and know where we are?
That is correct.
Okay. I will answer that question a little later on. Okay, so let's talk about setting the stage in our presentation. So key things that we want to look at is that, look, most strategies are hypotheses, and they need to be exercised, because at the point that we present them, at most cases, we have little idea of exactly if we're going to be successful with them or not. And we want to look at the things from a very strategic perspective. And since we think that a hypothesis is something that needs to be exercised to deliver value to the organization, customer, and stakeholders, we also have to understand that because we dream it and perceive it, it doesn't really mean that we will necessarily receive it. We want to make decisions that are based on economic factors that include priorities of the customer and market competition. One key thing is for us to use shorter durations to make strategic opportunities and evaluate them in the context of about a 2 to 4 week sprint, which gives more opportunities for things to come to the table and for us to make better decisions. So, and I know for some people this may appear to be really short based on the norm, but if we only deliver, small increments at a time, I think we'll make better decisions in the long run. When we look at these small increments, We want to think of them as minimum viable products that are really used to gather customer feedback and generate insights into the state of the strategic goal. Because oftentimes we set off strategies and we build a portfolio, and maybe a year or so later we'll begin to find out exactly how we're performing. Well, if we measure the promise a bit more frequently, we'll have a much better opportunity of understanding and knowing exactly what's going on. We want to also get to the point where we're measuring the strategic promise to evaluate if value is being delivered. We don't want to wait to the very end. And so, it's interesting. I was thinking about, back in the day of discovery, one of our great discoverers, they think they were in the East Indies, but actually they were in the West Indies and vice versa. And so we do not want to notice that we're in the West Indies when our intent was to be in the East Indies. Key for us is to remain focused and relentlessly pursue our strategic objectives and be resilient, throughout the ebbs and flows. So in our little dialogue or diagram here, we wanted to go through the process of strategic discovery, orchestrate some minimal viable products, do a little bit of execution, get some customer feedback, and measure the promise so that we have short, tight cycles that we're walking through. So iterative strategy. I believe that strategy should not be more than 3 to 5, should not be 3 to 5 years journeys, but delivered in short iterations. The discovery cycle, as I think about it, should be about 1 to 2 weeks of a 2-week sprint duration. And the execution cycle also should be limited to 6 to 12 sprints of 2-week duration. And so the goal here is to obtain frequent feedback. And we should be focused on the context of lean thinking and agility. I look back at sometimes how we evaluate people, and we get into the context of using things like SMART for us to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely, and tangible. And this has helped us as we're evaluating individuals in our organization to make sure that there's a great partnership to determine, what goals do we want to establish and how do we help them to achieve that. But I also think these principles are also applicable when we're dealing with strategies and we're building portfolio. We wanted to look at how do we decide to pivot or stay the course with frequent evaluation. And so most companies look at a quarterly boundary to make different decisions, but I was talking to one of my friends or colleagues at Salesforce.com, and their review cycle is even shorter. It's based on, 2 months. Every 2 months they get together to make sure that they take a look to see exactly how they're performing. And so what this shorter process has helped them to do is to discover more opportunities. They have a much better opportunity of orchestrating MVPs, executing, gathering customer feedback, measuring the promise, and making a great decision to decide to pivot or stay the course. I would also like to propose that we should limit our work in progress to about 2 to 3 innovations per year so that we can remain focused on really maximizing value, because the key thing is we have a portfolio that's filled with different strategic themes from the past, and we have to make decisions about those as well in terms of what investments we will continue to make. Big topic for me is lean thinking and agile tenets. And as I was thinking about this, and I think about this often, that there's a great synergies between these two disciplines. And so key for me when I look at lean thinking and agile, that if we could pair them up and put them to work, then I think we'll have a great opportunity of delivering great value to the organization. So as Jordan, when I look at this from a value perspective, value and respect, and I think of value that it is the money ball. This is the thing that we deliver to customers. And when we have great respect for our customers and the organization, we also, and for also ourselves, we help to deliver that money ball very frequently. And value stream, some people would say, well, why is value stream a tenant? But I look at it as being all-encompassing because value streams are visible to everyone, and they should be, who are really interested in all of the various steps, right, to deliver value. So we bundle together value stream and transparency. Flow and inspect as two pairing, where if we're building the right things at the right time and we're doing frequent inspection, that gives us an opportunity to respond and change direction as needed. Another pairing that we look at is eliminate waste and adapt. We know waste exists in everything that we do. So if we can inspect, adapt, and remove those unneeded steps, we could certainly get to an optimal state. Another pairing is pull and commitment. Well, we commit only to the requested work that comes in from the market and from our customers. And so a lot of those projects that you've been holding on to for many years just because they're your favorites, well, we may have to put those to bed and stop those. Continual improvements and empiricism. And through this process of relentless measurement of progress, learning, and the value that we create, it gives us an opportunity to have this dialogue, open dialogue, with different members of the organization to say, based on what we have measured and observed, we believe we should either go forward, we should stop, or get more clarification on different information that's needed. And I think one of the biggest tenet that goes across lean thinking and agile is courage. The courage to change, collaborate, and win. And those things are never easy. Well, strategies, I don't think they just happen. I think there's a stimulus or a set of stimulus that cause us to really get into the practice of developing strategies or identifying strategies to help the organization move forward. So we look at things like market dynamics. How is our competition doing, and what's coming in new to the market, and is our market stale, and do we have to bring something new? We have financial environmental factors where things that are outside of the control of your organization that may cause you to make different strategic decisions and establish strategic goals. Industry regulations. Our government oftentimes, or even different governing bodies, may provide or impose different regulations that we have to adapt to, and those things would also stimulate some level of strategies that we have to put in place. Sustaining and new innovations. I think that these are the key things that comes from people within the organization, even from our competition in terms of who we may want to go out and acquire at some time in the future. For most software organizations, we think of emergent architecture patterns, things that may come up that may radically change the way we do business. And you could think of it as what's going on with the whole cloud movement at this point in time of everyone, let's go to the cloud. So we could think of that as an emergent architecture pattern that we have to pay attention to, and also would help us to stimulate and generate some new strategies of how we're going to operate as an organization. And the key thing I want to remind you that we have reoccurring operations. There are things, strategies that we're put in place that are out there that may cause us to want to either pivot or continue forward with that work. As we go through, there's this practice called Hoshin Kanri, and it's a strategic decision setting lean thinking principles. The practice was devised to encourage or engage in collaborative discovery by including cross-functional teams at many levels of the organization with a major heavy focus on creativity and communication. One thing that stood out for me throughout the whole practice and the activities that take place is that this whole bi-directional feedback and ownership, where people are sharing and listening to each other to achieve a shared understanding, and really realizing that ownership is not only limited to the executives, We have the executives, different levels of management, team leads, and team members all contributing and taking ownership of innovation. So the people involved with creating strategies also want to understand the why, what, and how. Why are we doing this? What is this new strategy, and really how does it really benefit our organization? So that this practice of people collaborating through the process and gaining knowledge and understanding will significantly help us to move forward in terms of strategic discovery and also the strategic selection and building out our portfolio. So let's jump into the strategic discovery steps. As previously discussed, we talked about strategic stimuluses that would cause us to take some form of action. And so as we think of strategies being discovered through stimuluses, so the first thing that we may want to look at is that we always get out there and we scan. We scan the internal and external environments, and we observe different opportunities and threats, as well as strengths and weaknesses. And if you're engaged with any type of business disciplines, that is called a SWOT. So then after we have done our scanning, we have this great opportunity to exercise. We're going to exercise what we have observed, and we're going to do some market research, do some customer workshops as necessary to really begin to gather different levels of findings. Now, these findings are evaluated and measured to help us discover the feasibility of moving forward, with these different hypotheses that we may come up with. And so as we go through this discovery phase, we're asking different levels of questions. And when we get to the point of where we need to decide, then we wanted to figure out, do we need to clarify and get more information before we take any type of course of actions? Do we need to stop the discovery of the strategic item? And 3, do we fund the strategy and establish a new strategic theme? And the funding can be partial to deliver a vertical slice and learn more. So as we go through this strategic discovery cycle, it's not necessary that we have to fully fund that strategic goal or that opportunity. We could partially fund a slice of it so we could learn more in the process. Strategic themes are the things that comes out of our decisions, where we have participation by managers, executives, team members who are helping us to make these better decisions of what we have just funded. So when we think of a strategic themes, they're like the great differentiator in the market. So an example of that is, the big talk now is about big data, business analytics. And so using predictive analytics to drive customer behavior, you could think of that as one strategic theme. And that helps us to connect a portfolio with this great evolving enterprise business strategy that we're involved with. Because if we're doing this frequently, we're looking at the information that we're providing, then that gives us an opportunity to connect these themes together and the financial decisions that we make in terms of it being an input into our budget and portfolio. So I've been talking for a while. Now it's time for you to jump in and see if you have been paying attention. So our first engagement, we want to identify the 3 decisions at the end of the decide step. And so Denise will help us to get you to participate and collaborate and select one of these answers. So I want to tell you, when you arrive at the decide step, a decision is needed to help the organization move along and not become stuck in analysis paralysis.
All right, looks like we have some answers here, so let's go ahead and close our poll and share our results.
Yes, let's see what people have to say.
Can you see the results, Dave?
I'm looking for the results.
All right. I could read them off.
Okay.
So 39% chose A, clarity, go, and fund. 31% chose B, clarify, stop, and fund. 7% chose C, clarity, you must. And 18 chose D, clarify, stay, fund. And 4% chose E, none of the above. Which was the right answer?
The correct answer is B, that we should clarify, stop, or fund.
That was a close one with A.
Yeah, and it's meant to be tricky. So let's continue with our progress here. Let's keep going. So, even though we've decided to fund a strategic goal, and we still have to decide which one is the first and last. And then, so there's this concept that came from the Scale Agile framework, and they borrowed that from this author named Donald Reinertsen, who wrote this book, Lean Product Development Flow, and he talked about a cost of delay. And in his context of cost of delay, he's thinking about, the effect of time on outcomes, an urgency to value kind of a mindset. And so one thing that when I look at that, I take a step back and I say, well, you know what, let's look at this as an opportunity cost of value, of being able to do one thing or the other, and start to establish that priority. And so the perspective is that how much value can be gained if we operate with a sense of urgency. And so the formula that has been put forward, or the parts of the formula that is put forward, is that we should look at business value. And these are the sustaining activities that sustain the business outcome. How critical and time sensitive is it for us to get this work done? And is it one of those things that provides risk reduction, or it enables opportunity, which we're reducing certain levels of impediments that's coming to the organization, or we're able to expand our market and increase margin, which is one of the key things that most business leaders want. So the formula itself is the cost of delay is equal to the business value plus the total time criticality, TC, plus risk reduction and opportunity enablement. However, in Reinertsen's calculation, he moved forward and he had this big concept of the weighted shortest job first, called WIIFM, which we're still looking at an urgency to value proposition. And he introduced the fact that, yes, this should be throttled or managed based on the strategic duration of a job. And remember, I said that because most strategies at any point in time are hypotheses, the mindset is that, well, why not just use something like the Fibonacci sequence? For most of us who are in the Agile practice, and we use that as a way of saying, let's look at relative sizing. Is this thing bigger? Is this thing small as a 1, or it's really gigantuous as a 20? And so we use those as a way to look at different forms of scales in terms of complexity. And his proposition is that we should prioritize by the highest WIIFM. So I put together a simple table to illustrate what that would look like. And one of the key things that I put out as a strategic theme was predictive analytics to drive customer behavior. So if the business value was 8, the time criticality was 5, the opportunity enablement is 5, and the job size, which is duration of our strategic goal, those put together and run through the calculation give us about a 3.6. So we would say, based on the highest WIIFM value, this would be the first thing we would look at and attempt to get that solved and bring value to the organization. And likewise, as you can see, I put things in sequence so you can look at the formulation that has been proposed by Reinerson and some of the examples that I've put out there. This will help us to prioritize the different strategic themes that we would come up with for our backlog. So look at Net Promoter Score would be second, looking at social media, mobile analytics, and cloud as third, and the Internet of Things as an offering to homeowners would be fourth. And as an organization, this is where we would become aligned in terms of here's what we're going to do for the next period of time. So now that we have prioritized all of our list of strategic themes, and so we may have a bit more understanding at this point in time. And so one key things that companies like Google and others are using today is called Objectives and Key Results, or OKRs. And what OKRs do is they help us to find very specific objectives and 3 key metrics. And these metrics are very specific and they're very measurable. And sometimes we ask people, well, what's your confidence of being able to get there? Well, I don't think we have a really good answer at that point in time because these are just hypotheses. They have not been exercised. And even though we've done market research and we've talked to customers and we've gathered lots of information, we probably still do not know exactly what the outcome would be. Because if we did, that would be a very amazing feat to be able to predict the future. And unfortunately, we do not have that capability yet. So let's look at an example of what an OKR is. And we would attach one OKR to each one of our strategic themes. So I picked one, and predictive analytics drive customer behavior. It's one of those things that everyone is talking about right now, and it's a buzz so that they could generate and increase more margin, and also just build more loyalty. So our objective is to increase sales payment through e-commerce. So some of the key results that we may want to look at is that we wanted to have a 20% uptick in e-commerce sales by Q3. We want to cross-sell to customers with some adjacent product by Q3. We want to improve our Net Promoter Score by 5%. And for those of you who may not be aware of what NPS is, or Net Promoter Score, what that speaks to is loyalty. And as you remember, one of the key things that I asked or proposed that businesses want is to increase or retain loyalty. So this is word of mouth, people sharing their feelings about your product. And then we also have a confidence of 0.6, and you could really translate that to be somewhere about 60% of achieving this objective. So this is very specific. This is something that we could go back, look to in the future and actually measure, are we really achieving these goals by this specific time frame? And I'm going to go out on a limb and really propose something that as we start to set up our strategic backlog, right, that there should be a balance in there. That as we start to set up that balance, that we could spend and really assign 20% of some of our strategic goals to be high risk and high profit, which I would deem to be disruptive innovation, or could be disruptive innovation, things that will change the market. We'll spend 50% of our work on low risk and perhaps low profit, and those are things that we call sustaining innovation, the things that you have to do to keep the lights on. We may also look at 20% where we have some low risk and medium profit, where we're going after emerging markets, and maybe 10% of high risk and medium profit at vertical markets. But we also could pretty much divest or invest in other parts where we have low risk and high profits as well, where we're looking at more in this section, which are very hard to get at times, to really get things that are very low risk and high profits. I mean, if that was the case, everyone would be doing it, and we wouldn't have to do lots of portfolio work. And so we're getting to another engagement just to see exactly if people are paying attention. And the question is, what does the weighted shortest job first allow you to do? And so when you think about it, and Denise, this is another interactive opportunity with our audience. So WIIFM itself provides an economic view to help us prioritize and get the strategic goal with the highest value done with the greatest sense of urgency.
All right. Let's go ahead and close our poll and share some of these results. So it looks like 41% chose A, prioritize value based on cost of delay. 2% chose B, select the shortest job first. 17% selected C, weight value by size. 8% chose D, value the shortest job first. And 31% said E, all of the above. And the correct answer is
A. All of you who selected A, you did a great job.
Awesome.
Thanks. I would like to say that we have to have tools to get our job done. I know at times people would like to spend a lot of time using Excel, and I certainly do at times to try to prioritize work and put that together. But we should look at a tool that we could use to share information with multiple people across the organization. And so I would recommend that we definitely get a portfolio tool to store our strategies and our Agile portfolio items. So I'm going to recommend one tool that I've used in the past, which is Computer Associates. They have a tool called Clarity, and recently and this is an offering as a software as a service, so it works in the cloud. So about a year ago, they also purchased this Agile company called Rally, and they make a product called Rally Dev, which many people in the organization use to manage their portfolio of work and also their backlog of work. And so they have this great tool that connects not only traditional portfolio but also a blend with an Agile portfolio. So I wanted you to, as we're talking about Agile portfolio, I know some organizations still are not 100% Agile, and their business may be diverse enough where you have portions of it which is still more manufacturing focused as opposed to strictly software. So I look at Clarity as one of those players that you could connect in and really get some great value by connecting your traditional business as well as some of the Agile activities that are taking place. So I see the integration between Rally's PPM tool and TFS, which is another tool that we could use for Microsoft Team Foundation Server, where if you're doing Agile and you're getting into that practice, that teams have backlog of work to do, just like the organization have a backlog of strategies that they have to get done through the different teams. So the ability to connect those two sometimes disparate groups of people and together using a tool where we could do a roll-up of all of the team activities into the strategic goals we have established, well, helps to give us an end-to-end perspective of the work that has been completed by the teams and really the progress of those portfolio strategic items. So my advice to you is to get a tool, get a good tool that allows you to connect, provide the relative metrics that people are looking for, and so that we could begin to measure exactly where we are in terms of our strategies. So as we take these strategies, right, these things, we use them to satisfy needs of the customers and to really maintain healthy systems. In the Agile space, we have things called business and architecture epics. We have features and we have user stories. So when we look, I think, just like in our life, balance is really important, right? And so I think that developing an Agile portfolio is no different. We take these strategic themes and we translate them into business and architecture epics, which epics are then broken into features, and features then are decomposed into user stories. And then so we could really categorize these business features and epics as things that are customer value, 2, which are innovation, and 3, stability. When I think of customer value, this is the sustaining work that really keeps the light on. And then we think of innovation that provides new capabilities that could change markets, and stability is the activities to ensure that the current products are maintained and fixed for customer demand. So as we build up our portfolio, we have all of these great strategic items. We know that as we have the recurring operation activities, that we have to apply some stability work to that to make sure that gets done. And in the software world, we call these things technical debt. But this is what happens when you have a portfolio that is not well balanced, that you spend all of your time doing customer innovation and fixing all of their needs, but then you neglect the fact that in the technology space, the world moves rather quickly. So I want you to think about that as we go through and begin to build out our Agile portfolio so that we can maintain and get that work done. As stated before, we talk about the portfolio represents the organization strategic goals, and it's very customer value focused. We prioritize our work as we try to get things done and establish what are we going to do first and we're going to do last, and we could leverage the calculation and a formula of the weighted shortest job first, or WIIFM, and use the highest value to do that. We're dealing with a hypothesis at this point in time. As we start to make these level of decisions, also, we have to look at the constraint of the availability of resources. Shortest release cycles. Make sure that we could get customer feedback and engagement throughout the organization. An idea or a mindset, are we building out a culture that's seeking to do continual improvement and continual learning? So these short release cycles will certainly get there. But one big major activities that I'd like to share with you is that we would think about doing, 2 days of big room planning, where you get all of the individuals from the key executives to various members of the organization to the builders of things. So if we're doing software, we have software developers and testers and architects and product owners all together in a big room coming up and looking at the various strategies that we want to get done within on a quarterly boundary. And so everyone is participating and have an input so to ensure that we have strategic alignment and alignment throughout the organization. So someone asked earlier, how do we measure alignment and know where we are? Well, through this 2 days of big room planning, this is exactly what we're pursuing. The opportunity for us to come together with the executive managers, team leaders, team members, and make a decision of what work will we do for the next quarter. And the way we measure that is by using several metrics, and we'll get into that up next. So let's talk about measuring the promise. And so metrics in itself, they help us to really evaluate the portfolio backlog outcomes. And we'll look at different types of metrics. One that's my favorite is what I call a commitment rate. That we look at all of the work that we've delivered, all right, and we have what's been committed. So throughout a 2-day planning, we said we're going to do 10 items. Well, if we deliver 10, then we're at 100%, right? And so that's a very good thing. And so that's this is one way that we begin to understand that truly, are we really aligning in the organization? Is everyone on board? And this helps to let us know where we are. But additionally, we have like epic and feature progress, where that's just another chart that shows us exactly how we're progressing over time. Velocity, how quickly are we getting work in, the pace of delivery. Key things is quality trends. Are we building things that are of high quality that does not require rework? And also looking at team velocity versus capacity. Are we exhausting the team to the point where they're unable to get things done? And so these are a few ways that we could measure the promise. And so let's walk into looking at, if we had to do a balanced scorecard, I'm adopting this from the Scale Agile framework, that they look, so well, let's evaluate value, delivery, efficiency, quality, and agility. Well, one of the things that's a little bit different, and if you're used to measuring organization, the traditional balanced scorecard tends to look at customer, internal business operation, finance, and learning and growth. So I could equate value delivery with customer, internal business operations with efficiency, finance, and finance gets a little bit dicey because most people in the Agile space try to walk away from that, and that's one thing that I would put back in there that's missing in this balanced scorecard. And then learning and growth, that comes from quality and agility, just the practices. So there's some alignment between this enterprise agile balanced scorecard and a traditional software balanced scorecard. So this is another way of how we could really look at measuring alignment and actually knowing where we are. But we look at fundamentally into just a bigger set of slides and looking at some different charts. And now, one thing that I didn't include in here was quality trends, just space thing. I figure I would just tell you that. But I think these are some of the key areas that when you start to look at your portfolio, you can start to look at financial progress over time, month over month. How are we progressing cumulatively and based on the full year, and also on a month-by-month basis. So we can look at our spend if that's really important, and I think it is. Work distribution, how are we distributing our work between what we would call spikes? These are discovery activities in the software world. Functional or things that are pertaining to the business. Non-functional are activities that does add value, but they're not essentially things that are directly affecting the business. All right, so if you're an IT person, I talk to you about doing performance testing, all right, to see how exactly your systems are performing. I mean, customers do not really care about your testing. They care about the fact that the system is performing to a level that's acceptable to them. And the other one is defects. So how are we distributing our work in terms of that contributing back to our portfolio? Velocity trends. How the pace that we're doing work, are we meeting our plans as per team? We could even take this, are we doing that as per feature and epics? And looking at the progress of how we're getting work done in terms of, over time, how much work we're getting done? Are we meeting our commitments? So this is another way that you can start to understand how do we measure alignment and know where we are. So we have two or three different ways that we could begin to have a much better understanding of that. And I look at this thing what we call rumbling strips. And if you drive, on the road somewhere, you find that you run into these things at times. And this is a way to helps you to be alert of the progress of work that satisfy and deliver the strategic goals. And you think of them as just warning strips. Right, warning strips that are placed either in the center line or at the end of each driving lane, just to let you know, hey, stay within the boundaries here. This is what we have established for where we want you to drive and where we want you to operate. And so it's essentially the same thing as metric, providing guides for corrective actions. And so, sometimes when I'm not paying attention and I'm driving along and I'm distracted with something, I run into these rumbling strips and they go brrr, and then you take the time and say, oh, geez, I need to correct. Let me get back within the right driving lane. And so they're here as a way, as we use metrics and how we measure, that they're here to help guide us to get back to what we said we wanted to do, or to make course corrections if we're going off course. So be relentless and pivot to meet the objective as needed based on what the metrics are telling you. And be fearless and stay the course in adversity, because building new products and trying to establish what I call strategic goals and make those things come to fruition, they're not easy. This is hard work, and we have to get things done. Well, of course, I need to engage you guys and keep you focused a little bit as you're sitting in your office or wherever you are. So let's do another group engagement, and let's talk about the suggested Agile Portfolio balance. Which one is the correct answer? And so create a balanced Agile portfolio to allow multiple areas of the business to thrive. So Denise, are you polling?
Yes, sir.
I think she is polling. So the practice must, 1, support existing customers to continue to realize value. 2, create new ways to delight customers in the market. And 3, establish products that are non-defective to achieve customer satisfaction. So I just gave a high-level overview of why we need to have a portfolio balance. So how are we doing?
All right. Let's see. 9% said A, 28% chose B, 31% C, 22% D, and 9% none of the above. And the correct answer is?
The correct answer is C, that we want to do 60% customer value, 20% innovation,
awesome.
And 20% stability.
31% of you got it correct. Good job, guys.
Yeah, good job. I say culture matters. And most of us, I think most people know who Peter Drucker is. One thing that he says is culture eats strategy for lunch. So to help combat that, so that our strategic goals are not gobbled up, at lunch meetings or lunch events, I said use lean thinking and agility to cultivate a community of trust. Share those visions that matter to team, customers, and an organization. Don't take those things for granted. Be diligent and measure what adds value, because we should not measure everything because we can. There's a saying that all things are permissible, but not everything is beneficial. And I'll say that again, that all things are permissible, but not all things are beneficial. So measure what adds value. And let's develop a great mindset that we could all learn from each other. I know that's sometimes tough, but that's a reality that we need to get to in what we're doing. So through this great dialogue that I've had with you guys for the past 55 minutes or so, where we really want to get to is this strategy and portfolio cycle, where it is that we have this strategy backlog where it's defined by many people, where we have goals, metrics, and outcomes, and that gets filtered into our Agile portfolio backlog. That becomes it's prioritized by the different business leaders, and so we have business epics, architectures, features, and user stories. But then we also have, features, and then we get down to the team backlog, which I call the builders of things, where people are actually decomposing these big business ideas into small workable units that they could actually get out and build and test and execute. And at the fourth cycle is that we get to market launch. We want to get feedback. And so we get this awareness from our market, and so that we can make better decisions in the process. So let's summarize. I would like to say that we should use iterative strategies to achieve organizational goals. Um, Hire a portfolio project management tool, right? Hire that tool to get the job done of sharing information. Make the decision. So we want to decide, stop, and clarify, or fund, stop, and clarify strategic discoveries over using a 2 to 4 week, type of sprint, such that we have more opportunities for dialogue and more opportunities to make decisions. Prioritize our work, and the way to shortest job first, or WIIFM, is one tool that you could use for prioritization for your strategic goals and your Agile portfolio. Measure relentlessly. This helps you to pivot or to stay the course at this point in time. So I get down to the last slide with 3 minutes to go. Is there anything that was presented that I could clarify? And I think I have space or time for maybe 1 or 2 questions, and we'll be happy to do that. And also, you could also send in your questions to me. You could send it to drdave@nowshare.org, or send them off to Denise, and we'll put them in this tool, and I'll get back to you. That's one thing that I do. I do respond to questions that anyone may have. Denise?
Yes, indeed. For those of you asking about the recording and the slides, yes, they will be sent to you in an email by tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. And I think we can answer one question that was from earlier from Scott. He would like to know, how do we measure alignment so we know where we are?
And so I did answer that question probably several times throughout when the section of we're talking about the big room planning and the various metrics that we would use to get there. And so when we use big room planning, it's one opportunity where all of the executives, and let's call them the product portfolio managers, come together and said, here's our business objectives that we're going to do. And so all of the builders of things, all the software developers, testers, or everyone is in the same room for 2 days, and we begin by having that dialogue. Here's what we want to go. Here's where North is. As we walk through that process over 2 days, the teams are decomposing those big ideas to make sure that they become units of work that can be accomplished. So in terms of alignment, just the fact that you have sometimes the CEO or the CIO or the COO or CMO at these events saying this way is north, that helps to establish a dialogue and help to build alignment. And the fact that also the builders of things are engaged for 2 days working through this process, well, they get a greater understanding and knowledge of what needs to be done. Now, how we know where we are, it's based on various metrics. Look at things from a financial perspective. Look at the progress of the work that we committed to do and see how much of it we have delivered over that period of time. How we're doing from a quality context. Are we building good things that we don't have to do rework frequently? And also just looking at the distribution of work. Are we spending more time doing more discovery or fixing defects, or are we building things that are adding value to customers, or we're just doing research? And those things would help us to know, are we aligning back to the strategic goal itself? And look at the balance scorecard. So, I mean, I believe there are multiple ways, and what I've identified is a few ways based on my experience that has worked really well to help the organization understand alignment and understand exactly where they are at any given point. Denise?
Awesome. Thank you so much for that quick summary. So we are running low on time. Dave, I think you have a few more slides to go through really quick.
Just really quick, learn more about nowshare.org. Really quickly, we do assessment and strategies, and we help you we do some presentation and training like this. I have a book and a game on Amazon.com. The book is called Transforming Your Leadership Character, the Lean Thinking and Agility Way, and the game is also called Agility Leadership. Get out there and get this book. It helps to bring along some of the context and concepts that I'm talking about in my talks or these webinars that we've been doing now for the last 5 months, and I think we have about 3 or 4 more to go. So sign up for those. 5 Saturdays. This is a great program where we give back to our community and we help students to learn agility and innovation and technology. Learn more, donate, maybe start one in your community, be a leader in that context. Grok Share, I also run a podcast where we replay this webinar and also just different dialogues and different interviews that I have with different experts in business and technology. Feel free to get out there and gain more knowledge about those practices. So again, reach out to us at knowledgeshare.org or customer care at knowledgeshare.org or at Twitter at knowledgeshare, and you can reach me personally at Dr. Dave Info. Denise, I think we'll hand it back to you at this point in time.
Thank you, Dave. All right, so to earn your PDU, once again, you automatically receive your PDU certificate via email towards the end of today. For any other questions, comments, or anything else I can help you with, please feel free to reach me at denise.rodriguez@projectinsight.com. You will earn 1 PDU per webinar session attended, and to register your PDU, please log into pmi.org, log in as a member of PMI, select course or training, and fill out all the information below, which will also be in your PDU certificate. For those of you on social media, I'd like to invite you to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media channels. Our handle on Twitter is @ProjectInsight. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for the latest in PI news. And finally, in our PI community, you'll find many videos and webinars for you to watch and learn from. You can sign up for your next Agile webinar, IT methodology, PM training, leadership, product training, a bunch of them in there. They are all free, so go ahead and check out our webinar calendar and register for as many as you'd like. Until then, I'd like to give special thanks to Dave for joining us today and for a great presentation. And of course, we'd like to thank our audience as usual for showing up today and being awesome, hanging in there with us for a few extra 3 minutes. So thank you so much, guys, and I hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, we will.
Take care.